Hey, and welcome to today's jazz guitar lesson, in which I want to share with you 3 practice scenarios for working on thirds. Now, thirds are super important. They really do express the quality of a chord very well, so they're really good notes to target when you're soloing, when you're improvising over changes. But it can be hard to know how to practice them. What can I do with thirds once you've gone beyond the basics? What we'll do is we'll take the A section to Autumn Leaves in E minor, so that goes A minor 7, D7, G major 7, C major 7, F sharp minor 7 flat 5, B7 to E minor, and then so we can loop the section. It's nice to put in E7 at the end there because that leads us back to A minor to go again. All the tab and notation that you see on the screen is available, link in the description, as well as a link to my Patreon page where you can get the backing track that I'm playing over it, along with some more detailed transcription of what I play at the end of this lesson. So first off, be clear about what the thirds are against the chord progression you're working with. So we're working with this Autumn Leaves progression. What's the third of an A minor 7 chord? It's a C, it's a minor third. What's the third of a D7? It's an F sharp major third. What's the third of G major 7? It's a B major third. The third of our C major 7 is an E. The third of our F sharp minor 7 flat 5 chord is an A minor third. The third of a B7 is a D sharp, and the third of an E minor is a G. The third of an E7 is a G sharp. So just being clear on what they are really, I think being able to hear those against the chord as well, being able to maybe sing, your thirds against the chord, that's a very good thing to practice. First thing to do, just find those thirds as the chord progression goes round, and I would suggest singing it as you do it. Now, training your ear to that sound, those thirds against the chords, is the most important thing there, but it's not a solo, it's not a melodic line. And for me, one way we can make thirds more interesting is by adding other notes to it. Now, common conventional wisdom is that, target thirds and sevenths, but if you just do that, things are a bit dull. So we need to bring in other ingredients, and simple way I like to think about it is bringing in the note above. So if you've got a third, you'd have a fourth above that. Now that could either be a fret above, a semitone above, or it could be a tone above. That would, in terms of applying this to chord progressions, depends what scale the chord is from, but don't want to get bogged down into that today. Just think we're going to add a note, either a tone above or a semitone above. Now, it's commonly said that the fourth is an avoid note, but I quite like the tension it brings in, and I hate the idea of avoid notes. This is jazz we're trying to play after all. So for me, what's going to happen here is by playing a note above our third, it makes that third stand out that little bit more. So take the C, the minor third of an A minor, we're going to play a D, a tone above it. So it's going to go da da, and on the D7 we've got the F sharp, we're going to play the G above it, da da. You get that little bit of tension there from the fourth, da da, going down to the third on the G7, da da, G major 7, sorry, and then on the C major 7, da da, the F sharp minor 7 flat 5, da da, B7, da da, on the E minor, da da, on the E7, da da. So you hear there it's like falling into the third, which, as I said, makes it stand out a little bit more. It sounds like this. So I think the effect of that is that it makes the third stand out a little bit more, like falling down to the third, if you like. Nice thing to do, I think we could make that sound better, is if we put that note above our third on beat 4 of the previous bar. So we go 1, 2, 3, da da, like that. So this would sound like this. For For me, I prefer that because everything's not neatly packaged into bars. It's kind of playing into the chord, which I think is an important thing to get when trying to play over chord changes. And one neat thing we could then do with that is harmonise the chord where we've got the third. And this is a good gateway into chord melody playing. So say if I'll play this out of time first before I have the example against the backing. So we've got our line. Da, 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 but what if we harmonise the chord with the third, and we have it on the top? So we go, there's an A minor 7 with the third on the top, D7 with the third on the top, G major 7, third on the top, C major 7 with the third on the top. Again. And I think that sounds really pretty. Here it is in time. So far I've shown you the idea of how you could take your practice of thirds further by adding that note above that third, that fourth, just for a little bit more interest and a little bit more harmonic movement. Now, the really strong interval above our third is to go a third up again. So if we were on a C, a third above that would be an E. So if you think about, you've got the D in between, 1, 2, 3, so that would be the third above that. And in this next example, we're going to add the next third above, which in relation to the chord, if you took A minor 7, which would be, A, C, E, G, we've been using the C against that chord, the minor third. Go a third above that, we get the fifth, so that's an E. So essentially here, if we go a third above the third, we're just using the fifth of each chord. So this is the third and the fifth of each chord. So as I said, by playing the third above the third, you're actually playing the third and fifth of each chord. So that gives us, obviously 2 chord tones, and it takes us away from maybe playing arpeggios, like. And I think practicing these things, singing these things, trains your ear to those important notes. Now, if we added that fourth, that note above we were looking at the start of this lesson, we could do. And so forth for each chord. So what I was doing there, say for the A minor, I'm going for the note above the third, then the third, then the third above the third, so the fifth. What we're doing here is creating a theme for each chord, if you like, which is a great way to help you develop ideas over chord progressions. If I carried that through over each chord, it would sound like this. Taking that further, let's harmonise that chord with the third. So then put the third above it. I love the sound of that. I think that sounds really pretty. Here it is and fully fledged. Now what we've been essentially doing throughout this lesson is using a cell, melodic cell, using the third, the fourth, so that note above, and then the third above the third, which is the fifth, so 3, 4, 5 against each chord. Now one thing I like to do when you work with these kind of limitations is then find the different permutations of those notes. So here's a few you could practice. 3, 4, 5, 3. Now the tab and notation of that last exercise that I just played for you, the different permutations of the 3 notes, is available on the lowest tier of my Patreon page, along with the backing track that I used to create this video. As ever, if you've got a question, do leave them below. I hope you've enjoyed today's lesson, just sort of exploring different ways to develop your ear to important sounds against chords, developing sort of fundamental skills, fretboard knowledge, and, as I said, your ear for playing over chord changes. Don't forget, jazz guitar lessons every Wednesday. Till next time, you take care.